Hey, everybody. Welcome to another awesome, exciting adventure on the Lyme Boss podcast. I know today is May the 4th be with you. I know this podcast won't actually air until later on in July, but we were just geeking out. I was just geeking out over Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan. But we today have the founder, James Berry of Eat Pluck. And I met him at a low carb USA conference. Actually, I think I met you at Mindshare originally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he developed an awesome way to get your organ meats in, which is huge, huge, huge. Like I was so excited. Like I had to come back. I'm like, James, I have to have you on because this conversation is not talked about enough, and it really needs to be front and center. And James will get into why all that is. But I'm Heather Gray, aka the Lyme Boss, and I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner that helps busy professionals like yourself overcome brain fog, embarrassing digestive issues, and chronic widespread pain. Could it be undiagnosed Lyme disease? It was for me. That and mold disease and three autoimmune issues, but don't stop there, right? There are answers, and that's what I help busy professionals like yourself get. And in the meanwhile, we're going to be educating on why you should be eating your organ meats with James Berry from Pluck. So welcome.
Yay. Thanks so much for having me, Heather. And thank you for the work you're doing. It's so important. So important, that diagnostic, the diagnosis of Lyme and mold. It's just so prevalent. So kudos to you as well.
Awesome. Thanks. So why organ meats? How did you get into this? Like, what's your backstory?
I know, right? Well, picky eater, hand raised really high, picky eater from when I was a little kid. I mean, to the point where I didn't have my first taco till I was in college. I was probably paleo before anyone even understood what paleo is, because we would be traveling and stopping at McDonald's and I would order a special hamburger, meaning that they had to make it from scratch, that had nothing on it. And then I would slowly pull the patty out of the bun and just eat the meat, because I was so picky. And I still to this day, I don't like sandwiches. I don't like bread and meat together. It's very odd, but it's how I came out of the womb. So
are you on the spectrum by chance? Have you ever
I know. No, I don't think so. I hope not. It's a good question though, right? We didn't have the diagnosis then. So,
right.
But yeah, picky eater, and grew up in a household where it was like frozen peas, meat of some kind, and then like a baked potato. We knew dinner was ready because the smoke detector went off. So there was there was no kind of culinary expertise happening in my household yet. Maybe it's the contrast that kind of got me into cooking. So I went to culinary school I'd say about 18 years ago. And I'd always been passionate about cooking, but I never saw it as a career. And it was kind of after 9/11 that I reevaluated my life. And I was like, I should really only be doing the things that are in my heart. And I looked back at my childhood and I was like, oh, that's cooking. And so I went to culinary school, and honestly, it was going to culinary school that pulled me out of that picky eating, because I basically set the goal. I was like, look, I'm going to eat anything that is put in front of me. And so I tried foods that I normally would not.
So how does someone that is so picky even think to get into culinary school? Like, that does seem a bit of a kind of a
it's language of love. It's the love language of cooking, really. And honestly, that's something I didn't connect the dots to until probably last year. So my whole career I've been like, why do I love cooking so much? But I took a culinary class in junior high. It was my favorite class. And I was so excited to make a recipe for this tostada salad for my parents. I did not eat the tostada salad. I made it for them. And so I think right there, when I look back at that, I'm like, oh, that's me showing my love for them through cooking. And to this day, that's how I am. I love cooking for people and getting the feedback of how it nourishes them and makes them feel healthy. And honestly, I think that's really how I got to organ meats, because I was like, look, I see this problem. There's this thing going on, and I've always seen it, that we gravitate as humans, we gravitate towards comfort foods. We're a nutrient deficient society. It's something like 93% of Americans are nutrient deficient. and yet we're not calorie deficient. So
Right.
that tells you like we're getting enough food, we're just choosing the wrong food. So I've always been hell-bent in my career as a chef of like, how do I get people to eat healthy food? Well, it's got to be comfort-like. So it's got to be easy and it's got to be delicious. So that was always kind of the characteristics that I was looking for. So ultimately I became the kind of chef where I was like, I want to make comfort food healthy. Like, how can I make comfort food healthy? And so I spent all these years kind of doing that. And then it got to the point where I was now a father and I was like, okay, I have kids, I have a family. I want to take better care of myself. I want to make sure I live long. I want to make sure my kids are getting healthy food. So how do I get the most nutrient dense foods on the planet into them? And once I identified that that was organ meats, I was like, okay, I got to get creative here.
That's
And unfortunately, we already had the preservation technique. So freeze drying, we already, that's a modern technique that we already have. And what's awesome about freeze drying is that it's the raw organs. There's nothing added to it. It's the organ meats, raw, freeze dried, and then they're powdered. There's nothing else added to them. So they're really clean. It's still a whole food. And then I was like, well, how can I make it taste good? Because there's really 3 barriers to getting organ meats. It's like the ick, associated ick taste. How do I cook them and how do I source them? And so I set out to solve that.
That's incredible. I have the same passion. That's why I created an online cooking course. I have like 7 or 8 videos on real cooking for real life, right? Because so many people were like, all the time when I tell them I'm paleo, they look at me like, well, what do you eat? I'm like, oh my God, we eat so good and so healthy. So finally I was like, let me show you. So I need to actually make a cooking video using Pluck. That would be great to do.
Oh yeah, man. Share
Yeah,
it with us. We'll spread it around.
I will. Actually, I need to write that down.
I
Maybe.
mean, honestly, you're tapping something that really is important for everyone to understand is that you cannot get healthy eating out.
Mm-mm.
It's literally impossible.
Yep.
The only way you can truly take charge of your health is by controlling the ingredients you eat, the
Amen.
food that you eat. And that starts in the home, so absolutely. You got it. You don't. Now, one thing I got to say though, as a chef, a lot of people get confused because they think, oh, well, you got to love cooking. I'm like, no. Just because we need to eat does not need to mean that we have to love cooking. What you need to do is just cook. You just need to, it can be a functional thing. You just need to make food from scratch so you can control the ingredients. I'm not telling you have to be an amazing chef. Right. There are ways, and we can even talk about them in this episode. There are ways to basically be more of a, not like a functional chef, like where you're not worrying about so much about the recipe. You're more
Right.
looking at things as formulas.
Right.
And you're really just kind of basing every meal off of like, does it have a protein? Does it have a fat? Does it have, whatever else you want to add, whether it's a resistant starch or a vegetable, whatever you do. But you can really just focus on the essentials.
Absolutely. I read a research paper not too long back talking about how women have a tendency to cook more functional and men have a tendency to get more creative when it comes to cooking in the kitchen. And I totally see it because that's my video course. It's functional cooking. It's how to make these delicious meals in 20 minutes or less because I'm a busy mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I got shit to do, right? I can't be a lot of these meals that I make, people are like, oh my God, where did you find the time for that? I'm like, dude, that took me 20 minutes. Like
Totally.
I'm not in the kitchen all day. Who's got time for that?
It's funny that you say that though, because I've found in all these years working with practitioners and, helping families and individuals with their health, that it's actually the men that thwart it. So that's fascinating that they're the ones that are getting all gourmet in the kitchen, but typically it's the women that drive the health
Right.
for the, for the family. And then it's typically the men that thwart it. Like if there's kids involved, it's the men that are kind of, I don't know, I'm making this up, but they're kind of connecting with their kids over food. And so they'll be like, well, I know you're not supposed to eat gluten or dairy, but let's go get that ice cream together. So they're the
110%.
ones that somehow throw everyone under the bus health-wise.
Right. Well, so no, and that's what I mean though. So that's actually one and the same. So even though the men will get more creative sometimes in the kitchen, doesn't mean that they're cooking for health. Right?
Right.
It's still that comfort fact, right? It's still
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So no, 110%. Like it's taken me, my ex-husband, man, that's why he's an ex-husband, but my new husband, when I first met him, he was like pizzas and burritos. That's where he lives. And now he can actually, he'll cook a lot of these meals on his own, and it's beautiful. And now he'll ask, oh, what vegetable should I put with this? And like, he knows, right? So he's been taught and now he knows, but he has a tendency when I give him a little bit more time, he does get more creative and will cook fancier stuff to where, like I said, I'm banging shit out for one, for health, and two, just to get some substance in my body because of my blood sugars crashing, because I have a tendency to wait too long to eat sometimes. So that's a whole nother story, but let's go. This is an awesome time to stop. Let's go on a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we'll dig deeper into the science of organ meats, why organ meats, and how you came up with some of these different formulations that you have, because they're delicious, folks. I've been using them now for a couple of months. I put them in my smoothie, and it's so stupid easy. But wait, we'll be right back. Hydrate the delicious way with LMNT, delicious electrolyte drink. When you're in the heat of the summer, you're sweating, or whether you have a regular detox practice, right? Like using the sauna, making sure you get the right amount of electrolytes daily is absolutely crucial. These little guys are your spark plugs for your energy system in your body and your brain. So if you've got brain fog, if you've got low energy, instead of reaching for a cup of coffee, next time reach for an LMNT, and they come in so many amazing flavors. My favorite is grapefruit salt, and my second favorite is watermelon salt, probably followed by chocolate caramel salt, which I think is a seasonal flavor. But check it out. Get yours today. LMNT. Hydrate deliciously. Stay salty. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully already we've planted some seeds in that first part of the session, and then now we're going to dig deeper into how you can get more organ meats into your system. Why, right? Why is that so important? The name of this is from awful to delicious, so I'd love for James to dig a little deeper. I forgot even what awful meant at first. I was reading it and I was like, this is a play on words. But I can't remember what it meant. And then I had to look it up and was like, oh yeah, right. That makes sense.
Yeah, they think the term came from when you slaughter, cut an animal and down the abdomen area, that these are the parts that fall off. These are the parts that just literally kind of come out. I mean, and that is actually an important distinction, is like, so offal, OFFAL, is another name for organ meats. There's many others, variety meats. Pluck is actually an old term for organ meats.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, that's where we got the name for the product.
Awesome.
But ultimately it's like, well, I think people it's a good to start out, well, what is organ meats? Because a lot of people just think of it as liver. Like literally you go, oh, are you eating organs? They're like, oh yeah, I'm getting my liver. It's like, but I don't like it, and it's like, well, organ meats are so much more than just liver. It's basically every part of the animal except the bone and the muscle. So that's tongue, lips, skin, tail, blood, stomach lining, which is called tripe, feet. If it's pigs, it's called trotters. Of course, the ones we've already discussed, like liver, heart, kidney, spleen, lungs, testicles. There's like festivals that are called the Rocky Mountain Oyster Festivals, and that's what they call testicles, Rocky Mountain Oysters. I love that name. I just think it's
I live
so
in
funny.
Colorado. There's a Bruce's Bar in a small town called Severance, and they're famous for their Rocky Mountain oysters.
And here's a little funny fact too, is like we were talking about comfort foods and how people gravitate towards those, and that's kind of what I've always noticed. Well, what is the primary way to cook those Rocky Mountain oysters? Is to fry it.
Right. I was just saying, so they're taking a healthy thing possibly, and they're completely destroying it with putting it in breading and frying it in inflammatory oils.
Totally. I mean, but that's kind of just to my point, is like, that's where we gravitate towards those crispy, creamy, those textures, specific kind of comfort food textures, saltiness. Our palates tend to skew in America. They tend to skew salty and sweet. So we're constantly gravitating towards those ways. And to your point, it is interesting because even when it's something healthy, we're somehow making it unhealthy.
All right. It's like, what did you do that for?
Totally.
What are the benefits of testicles? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I look at it, I don't know specifically the testicles, but all the organs have benefits. And one of the ancestral kind of way of looking at it is like support like.
Mm.
So for example, heart is high in CoQ10, and CoQ10 is specific. It's a specific, specifically supports cardiovascular health. And that is found in heart. So the idea is that if you're eating heart, it's going to support your heart. If you're eating liver, it's going to support your liver. And if you think about it, if we kind of step back and we're like, well, does that actually make even common sense? And it really does, right? Because every organ has a purpose, every single one of them. And their minerals, their vitamins, they are designed nutritionally to do their job. And so they have the appropriate minerals and vitamins to do that job. And in the case of like a liver and a kidney, their job is to break down toxins and make them water soluble so that you can then excrete them, whether it's in your pee, your poop, or your sweat. But that is their job. Their job is not to store them. Their job is not to, like, I don't know, do the things that the heart does or do the things that the lungs do. You know, they are very specific. And that's why they're very high in like vitamin A. They're very high in iron, magnesium, folate. I mean, I always tell people it's like organs are Mother Nature's multivitamin. It's designed exactly as Mother Nature intended. And it has, you know how like when you're taking capsules and sometimes if they're fat soluble vitamins, they're like, oh, you got to eat this with food, right? Well, when you're eating it as Mother Nature intended, it is with the fat. It is a food. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do anything extra. And that's what I love about it. It's like, it's all designed, like even the minerals that are there to support the absorption of the other mineral, like, you know, magnesium and iron support each other. It's like, they're there together and they're in proportional like amounts so that they can be properly, you know, absorbed. That's why organs are considered so bioavailable. They're easily absorbed.
So when you talk about it being like a multi-mineral, I noticed that on the back of the package, it suggests, you know, a half a teaspoon. Is that to get like your recommended daily allowance, or is that more for a flavor thing? Or can you kind of break down the nutritional breakdown of like, if you're taking it as a nutritional supplement, like how much should you be getting?
I love this question. So first of all, it's kind of a two-part question because packaging in general is manipulative. You know, a lot of times we are setting portion sizes so that we can say, oh, there's 100 servings in this package. You know what I mean? So we're basing it so to make you, we're educating you on how long that package will kind of help you. Sometimes companies are manipulating the back by if they keep the portion small enough, the sugar or whatever bad is in there doesn't show up as high. You know what I mean? So there's constant manipulation around labeling depending on what you set that portion size is. But what I love about this conversation is that ultimately it is a conversation of like, well, should I be taking these nutrients in a capsule or should I be eating them? And what I love about eating my nutrition versus swallowing my nutrition is that when you eat your nutrition, you are basically not you're utilizing your kind of God-given digestive, nature's intention of how we digest food. The whole digestive process from putting it in your mouth, the saliva, breaking it down with your teeth, swallowing it, and making it hopefully more absorbable within your body. When we swallow something like a capsule, we're basically bypassing the immediate communication that happens when we stick it in our mouth. So I like using salt as an example. So if you're low in sodium and I put salt in your tongue, you will get literally an immediate communication like that salt tastes delicious. I need more. Or it'll be like, it's gross. Stop, too much, right? It's immediate. There's no time lapse at all. But if I give you a salt tablet and you swallow that, maybe 20, 30 minutes later, you get feedback. Oh, I feel so bloated. What's going on? Oh, I took that salt tablet. I probably got too much salt. So when we eat our nutrition, immediate feedback. When we swallow it, delayed. And so that to me answers the question, well, how much do you need? Because when you buy a bottle of, organ supplements, it will say something like, oh, do 6 to 8 capsules. Well, how do they know what you need versus what I need? And I know plenty of people that follow the bottles and then they feel incredibly nauseous. But when you eat it, your body's going to say, this is so good. Give me more, give me more. And when you don't need more, it will tell you that it doesn't taste. It will stop tasting as good. You'll just kind of go flat with it. So that said, your body will tell you what you need, but at the same time, I find it's all about microdosing. It's all about just doing a little bit every day. And it's something that a lot of people kind of like toss aside. They don't put an emphasis on that frequency. And this goes with anything healthy. This goes not even with healthy. This goes with anything in life. We focus a lot on how much, but the truth is it's really about how often.
Absolutely.
Because if you go on a walk once a week, you'll get a little bit of benefit, but really not much. But if you go on a walk every single day, you will get a benefit that you were not getting before.
Absolutely.
And the same thing with food, same thing with literally anything, holding someone's hand, hugging someone in the morning. If you hug someone in the morning and at night and you do it daily, you're going to feel more like kind of connected physically than if you don't do it. But it's all about how often you do it. So for Pluck, I'm always like microdosing plus frequent use equals cumulative effect.
Nice. Yeah, because I get what you're saying. And I end up putting mine in my smoothie. So I don't actually taste it, so I'm still trying to figure out like what's the right amount of dose so I can get what I need nutritionally, so I'm doing about a teaspoon in our smoothies and it serves two, so I guess we're getting about, half a teaspoon each, but I mean, is that enough?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the reality. The only way you're going to fully know that is if you do testing on yourself and you see where your minerals are. I mean, you're definitely going to see that your iron is going to go up. You're probably, hopefully, since you started using it, maybe you're noticing your energy levels. We get that kind of feedback all the time. I typically say about a teaspoon for each person, but I also believe what's going to really move the needle, it's going to be that you use it daily,
Right?
And then also what's going to keep you using it daily, and it's probably as long as you don't taste it. So,
Exactly.
right. So if you add 2 teaspoons and you start tasting it in your smoothie, you're going to be less inclined to want to do it. So I always say, keep it at a ratio where you don't taste it.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah, because I was telling you at that conference that I'm Western A Price, trained originally. Like that was the beginning of this holistic training. And they're huge into organ meats, and I've tried so many different ways and I just can't stomach them. It's a texture thing. It's a taste thing. Like I've tried hiding liver into hamburger and I can taste it within a bite. I'm like, there's liver in here, so I just think that it's great. So how on earth though, did you take, I mean, if that's all you've done is freeze dried it, well, you said, okay, so let's get into how did you make them taste decent, palatable?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the focus really is on I really do the way to make healthy food a lifestyle is you have to hit 2 marks. And I mentioned them earlier, but I'll just stress them, is it's got to be easy. It's got to be delicious. That to me connects our human nature, and it also connects our busy lives. And it just connects our kind of where we will emotionally gravitate, right? When it's easy and delicious, there's no reason to stop. But when you only hit one of those, there is reason to stop. If it's easy, but it tastes disgusting, you're going to stop pretty quickly. If it's delicious, but not easy, you're still going to stop eventually because you're going to run out of steam with it. So
Right.
you got to hit those 2 things. And so that's really what I set out to do. And what I kind of equated it to is like, I was like, well, when you make a pate, which is how most people eat organ meats, you're basically taking the organ, usually a liver, and you're combining it with like onion and garlic. You're using these kind of herbs or these products to offset that taste. And I was like, well, shoot, we already have freeze-dried powdered organ meats. Why can't I just combine those with seasonings? Like we're technically using granulated onion. That's a real onion. It's just been dried and then granulated, right? Same thing with garlic. So we're taking these things that are, once again, whole foods found in nature, and we're utilizing them to offset that taste. And basically what you have, and we have 4 products, but what you have, 3 of them have flavors. You have our organ blend, which is liver, heart, kidney, spleen, and pancreas. So you're getting 5 organs. And even people that get liver, they're not getting spleen and pancreas and sometimes the other ones. So I'm always telling people like that, because people say, oh, I eat my liver. I'm like, great, but what about the other ones? Like, what about everything else? Because I really push nose to tail. I'm not just about liver. Like, I am not the liver king. Well, he even focuses on other things too. But but point being that I really do believe we need whole animal nutrition, not just muscle meat, not just liver. It's got to be whole animal. And so that is my goal, is I'm trying to make you getting whole animal as easy as possible and deliciously as possible. And that's, so now it's a seasoning. It's shelf stable. You can literally put it on.
Oh no. He seemed to froze. We're going to come back. Hey there. So there'll be some creative editing going on in this episode because we had an internet situation where it went down, but we're going to try to pick up where James left off because he was on a roll dropping some truth bombs on us. So James, we were talking about your formulations, right? And how you add, real food to it. So that way we're getting still a whole food product. So if you can continue where you left off, that'd be great.
Yeah, I was just kind of just sharing. I had shared that we have 4 products total, but 3 of them have spices and herbs, and you really can add them to anything. They're extremely versatile and delicious, and it makes everything a superfood. This one guy told me, he's like, this product's brilliant. You're literally turning everything into an ancestral meal. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Oh, right.
But hey, there you go. So you put organs on it, and now it's an ancestral meal. But the product that you're using in your smoothies, for people listening, you had mentioned that you're adding like a teaspoon of it. That one is just the organ blend. It has no salt, no spices, no herbs. And what's nice about that one, as you're using it, it's very neutral and it can be added to things that have flavor. So the other 3 provide flavor. That one just provides nutrition, but you add it to things that do have flavor, like sauces, dressings, smoothies. You can even mix it into ground meat. And then it just goes back to what we already talked about, which is now you're eating your nutrition, and it's all still whole food based. It's not an isolated vitamin. Everything in it is designed for bioavailability.
And so does heating it, like if you cook with it, is it going to denature anything, or probably not? Because I mean, if you're cooking organ meat, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, well, heat does denature everything. Like, so even when you take raw meat and you start to cook it, it does denature it slightly. Right. But to your point, it's a whole food. So at least it's not like an isolated vitamin that any heat's just going to completely desolate it. It's like, it's still a whole food. It's just powdered. So it's going to be more protected in that whole food state than it is if it was, isolated and made in a laboratory or something like that. Because some of those, vitamin C powders and stuff like that, if they get exposed to any heat, they're done. There's no point in them. That's why fortified foods sometimes don't make any sense. It's like, if something's fortified and there's any, well, A, it's coming from a laboratory, so your body doesn't fully recognize it. And then B, if there's any heat applied to it, even the heat that it might get from the sun, it can totally denature it.
Gotcha. No, but that totally makes sense. But no, I like the idea of adding it to just ground meat too, because it would be awesome to add a little bit to every meal instead of just our smoothies in the morning. Like, because it is like, I can't even get over the difference in how my skin looks, and my hair and my nails. Because like I said, I've always known the benefits of organ meats. I just haven't figured out a way until now. He saw how geeked out I was when I met him at Mindshare. Cool. I was like, oh my God, because I know how important and healthy and like superfood. You talk about superfood, like organ meats are the original superfood, right? And to figure out a way to make them palatable, like, freaking genius. You're a genius, James.
Oh, jeez. I wish sometimes I feel like it was like divine intervention. I don't even know. Like it's pretty amazing in today's day and age to come up with a new food product that is not laboratory made. And so I just feel very lucky that I came up with it. The key though is, and it all goes back to what we started out with, is we really want to be focusing on real food. We want, like I always emphasize to people, like you want to eat foods that are ingredients versus have ingredients. And so it's really important you're kind of focusing on those base level foods. For my money, it's animal proteins and vegetables, good fat. And if you can, as much as possible, go right back to basics, and try to make things from scratch. One of the best things for people to make from scratch that gets kind of like, doesn't get enough attention, is dressings. Like people
Oh,
are always going out and buying sauces and dressings, but those products have the worst ingredients in them, worst fats, everything, right?
horrible.
So what I always recommend is you do it yourself, and I'll even give you a tip right now that will just make it so easy. Basically, you think of it as a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 parts fat, 1 part vinegar or lemon juice or lime juice, whatever you're using. So it's 3 parts fat, 1 part acid. And that, when I say 3-to-1, that's just all you have to do is use the exact same vessel for measuring as you do for each part. So if it's a tablespoon, 3 tablespoons to 1 tablespoon. And that, all you have to do is take those ratios and add it to a mason jar, then add maybe some salt, some pepper, even Pluck. You can put Pluck in there, and you'll see it's just delicious, and it's simple, and it took you 2 minutes.
Oh,
So
it's funny. Every single time I make my own dressing, I can tell the difference. Like it feels like this satisfaction in my body that I don't get any other time. And then I actually want to pick it up, and I do, and I drink the rest of the dressing because it's just like this deliciousness that my body's like, yes, please give us more. Like most people don't realize that these horrific inflammatory fats that we're eating and what it's annihilating our mental health. It's annihilating our hormones. It's annihilating everything because our cellular, right, our membranes, that's what they're made up of, and they will use with the ingredients of what they have. And if we're using crappy ingredients, we're going to get a crappy outcome when it comes to how our cells are reproducing, right? So these healthy fats, and we bastardized them back in the 80s and the 90s, and now we're paying for it, right? So we need to get these healthy fats back into our diet for mental health, for all health, right?
Well, I'm glad to actually bring that up, because that is one thing I'm always stressing to people is, people think I'm joking, but I'm very serious when I say I believe organ meats can save the world. And I'll even say eating whole animal. And how that is because I believe we treat other people how we feel. So if you're not feeling good in your body, then you're going to treat people poorly. And so my goal is, how can I make you to feel better in your body? Well, I can support your nutritional density. Like I can make sure that you're getting good nutrient dense foods, and organ meats, as we've discussed, are the most nutrient dense food. And right now we're not eating them. Like the majority of people are not eating them. So you're starting from zero. And so Pluck truly is the gateway. It's the easiest way to get them. I think it's the most delicious way to get them. And then from there, you don't have to stop. I mean, there's plenty of ways to then keep easing organ meats in your diet, but you got to start. And once we get you starting to feel better in your body, now you're treating other people better. And now we have a whole new world.
I'm laughing because I swear to God, you and we must have been separated at birth or something. You're a brother from another mother. I quite often talk about the Karens of the world and how that we actually need to treat them with a little bit more empathy, because a Karen doesn't become a Karen if she didn't feel like shit to begin with, right? Most people don't act that way, that Karen-ish, and I hate what they did to that poor name. But we all know what that means, right? When you bring up, that Karen, Karens don't act that way because they get off on acting that way. If you think about it, it's because they're not working right. They don't feel good. I used to tell people at my worst with Lyme disease and mold and autoimmune, I was a snappy Karen. I was judgmental. I all of it. And that wasn't who I was. Right. But I just felt like crap. And I was so inflamed all the time that's what came out. And so I tell people to have compassion for the Karens of the world, because they feel like crap, because there's no healthy person treats other people that way.
Well, and a big truth bomb you just dropped too is that a lot of people don't realize what it means to thrive. A lot of people are in have chronic health issues and think that feeling of where they're at is normal. Right. And they don't realize, actually, if you just deal with those chronic health issues, whether it's inflammation or your blood sugar or anything like that, suddenly you gosh, this is what it means to live every day and thrive. Like, it's like you suddenly realize you were never thriving.
Right.
Absolutely. So it's huge. I mean, a lot of times we need the contrast. I think it helps. I mean, most people don't make a single change to their diet until they've either experienced health issues, or someone they love having health issues, right? Absolutely. So they have to have something scary to make a change. Well, the same thing goes with your health. Like you almost need to, you need to experience disorder to value order. And you also need to just know that you are most likely living in disorder and you just don't realize it. And so I'm hoping if you're listening to this, you give it a try. Like organ meats really will make you feel better. Your body, like what is so amazing, Heather, is when you give it to kids. When you give Pluck to kids, you don't tell them what it is, but you watch how their body responds, and that tells you everything you need to know about what we need, because the kids have no filter. They're just like their body, literally, like clients tell me their kid cry when the Pluck is out because their kids crave it so much. And that says everything. It's like these kids are canaries in the coal mine. They know what their bodies need, and when they get a hold of organ meats, their bodies go crazy for it.
Oh, I see that with the bioenergetic work that I do as well, because so many adults have got the ego kind of wrapped up into shit, but kids are pure, right? Pure energies. And when you're working with them, like it's amazing to see how fast you can move the needle when it comes to working with kids. And I might want to start sprinkling this on my cat's food too, even though I do feed her a raw meal now, but it's still only, a couple pieces of the animal are raw, but I bet, even adding this to her food would benefit her.
It does. I do that. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Except with the ones without the onions and the garlic though. Because
I was just going to say specifically the Pluck Pure. That's the one that's only organ meats, no salt, because you don't want to be giving seasonings and spices to your animals. Yep. But yes, I do the same thing. I have a cat. Cats are they like the same food all the time. Dogs are a little bit more versatile, but like cats are very regular. And I have one that's got a very sensitive stomach. And so we really do feed her the same food all the time. And sometimes she just doesn't want to eat it. But if I sprinkle a little bit, and I'm talking just a pinch of Pluck Pure on it, she goes crazy for it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Mine's a total, I rotate turkey, rabbit, chicken. And so, yeah, those three. Oh, and salmon. Trying to get down to her food sensitivities, and the cat still itches. I can't believe how much I've gone through with this cat, and she's such a picky. Like 1 week she'll eat rabbit, and the next week she decides she doesn't want to eat rabbit.
They're
and
so
I feel
picky.
so bad because this is an animal, right? That was, that I'm throwing away in the trash because my cat won't eat it, and it drives me bonkers. But I'm gonna have to try to sprinkle.
Yeah, that honestly, I've found that it makes a difference. And the other point too is these raw foods are so expensive. We spend so much money on our animals. It's like you don't want to throw it away. So
no, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, the pure made a difference for us. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that. Damn, you and I could have so much fun. I'm like, maybe we should start our own podcast because, like, this was James. Like I said, I geeked out when I first met you from the get-go. And then when I saw you again, I geeked out again and was like, oh my God, I have to have you on my podcast. Because like I said, I know the gift that you are to this world and what this product is. And I had to share it with the world. Right. So I so appreciate what you're doing and that you're in this fight, right, with the rest of us to eat more real whole food and get back to thriving instead of just surviving and being sick. So where do people find you?
Yeah, so we're sold online and on Amazon. The online website is Eat Pluck, EATPLUCK. I'm sure the link will be in the show notes.
Yeah, actually, because I've got an affiliate link. So
yeah, there you go. So use your affiliate link, and then you can also find us on socials. We're on Twitter now. I just joined.
I just jumped off of Twitter. I'm like, I can't handle this shit.
I know. I hate all this stuff, but honestly, a person who really I respect very highly was like, I really can help you guys. Just get on Twitter. I'll help you. And I'm like, okay, we'll give it a try. So we are on Twitter at EAT_Pluck because someone already had Eat Pluck and they don't even use it, but whatever. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook at Eat Pluck with no underscore. So hopefully that's not too confusing, but that is our current modern world of how you do social media. You can't take something that's already taken.
Right. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time with me today, even through the technical issues that we had. This is still going to be a beautiful episode and I can't wait for it to come out. So thank you again for joining me, James. I so appreciate you.
Thank you. And thanks so much for spreading the plucking word because it really is. It is a mission. And like I said, this is just the gateway. And my goal is to help people get whole animal health in their diet. So please reach out if you need any more support, because that is what we are here to do.
Absolutely. And to the rest of you, have a healthy day.